The alien woman smiled when she read the human man's thoughts. The first thing Kaelen noticed after the crash was that the sky had teeth. Not literal teeth, though in that moment, delirious from the impact, he was half convinced something up there was chewing on reality. Shards of light hung in the clouds, jagged and glimmering, like a predator's grin stretched across the firmament. He blinked twice. Still there. Well, he muttered aloud, spitting out a mouthful of dust, and what he sincerely hoped wasn't his own blood. Either this planet has a dental fetish, or I'm concussed. The air tasted strange. Sweet, almost metallic, with a faint hum under the tongue, like licking the casing of a power cell. His suit sensors flickered weakly in his visor, feeding him nonsense. Atmosphere stable. Gravity variable. Mental interference detected. Mental interference. Great. Perfect. Just what he needed. Hallucinations to go with a concussion. He struggled to his feet, boots sinking slightly into soil that glowed faintly, pulsing like a living heartbeat. Around him, the forest stretched in luminous chaos. Trees with translucent trunks, leaves flickering with colors no human eye had names for, roots curling upward, as if trying to climb back to the stars. Every so often, something chittered in the distance, a sound like silver bells dunked in oil. Kaelen groaned and activated his calm, static answered. The Eidolon, his shuttle, was nothing but a burning smear on the horizon, its escape thrusters buried in what looked suspiciously like a lake made of liquid crystal. He didn't need diagnostics to know the truth. He was stranded, alone, on an alien world that probably had a word for human snack. "Great job, Kaelen," he muttered, pulling off his cracked helmet. "You studied xenolinguistics for 10 years, and now you're going to die because you couldn't land without playing lawn dart." A ripple of thought brushed against his mind. He froze. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't even a voice. It was texture, like silk dragged lightly across the inside of his skull. The sensation came with a taste, cool water and something floral, threaded with curiosity. Kaelen spun, scanning the forest. Nothing but trees and too much glowing moss. Then slowly movement, figures emerging from the shimmer, tall and graceful, skin faintly iridescent like moonlight on glass. Their hair flowed as if underwater, and from their heads curved ears, long, elegant, tapering to fine points that twitched faintly in the air. Variants. He was looking at real, live variants. The first contact protocols screamed in his head. Do not run. Do not speak unless invited. Do not, under any circumstances, think hostile thoughts, which was going to be difficult, because his brain was currently cycling through "oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm so dead, oh no" on repeat, like a broken hollow track. The tallest of them stepped forward, her gown woven from threads of light itself, shifting colors as she moved. Her ears were longer than the others, adorned with chains of silver and beads that glowed faintly. Her eyes fixed on his, and Kaelen felt the air tighten around his thoughts. Then she spoke, not aloud, but in the hush between neurons. "You are loud." Kaelen almost yelped. "Wait, what?" "Your mind. It crashes like waves. Stop flailing." I'm not flailing. I'm okay. I'm flailing a little." He clamped down hard, trying to shove the panic into a corner. Unfortunately, his brain decided to fill the silence with an image of her, tall, radiant, ethereal, and then immediately added, "Wow, she's gorgeous," because his neurons were traitorous idiots. A pause. Then something strange happened. The woman's lips curved. She smiled. The court of variance, because that's what this had to be. An entourage of glittering nobles, who looked like they'd stepped out of some cosmic fairy tale, stirred in shock. He didn't need telepathy to know smiles weren't standard protocol. Gorgeous. Her thoughts slid into his like a blade of silk. That is an aesthetic classification, yes? Kaelen's brain chose that moment to die a small, embarrassing death. Objectively speaking, in a purely xenobiological. You find me pleasing. If he'd had water, he would have choked on it. Instead, he just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a broken airlock. That's not, well, okay, yes, but look, can we not? Her amusement rippled through his skull. Soft laughter made of sunlight on water. You are strange. You fear, but you do not hate. Behind her, one of the variants tilted his head, eyes narrowing. Kaelen felt something sharp brush his thoughts, like claws testing the edge of his mind. Nira. He didn't know her name yet, but he would. Snapped her gaze sideways, and the pressure vanished. Enough. Her thought cut like frost. He is mine to read. Kaelen swallowed hard. He had no idea what that meant. He suspected it was either very good or very, very bad. He said aloud, because silence was apparently killing him. Just so you know, I come in peace. And panic. Mostly panic, if we're ranking things. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, impossibly, she laughed. Not in his head this time, but aloud, a low, melodic sound that bent the air like music. And that was the exact moment Kaelen realized two things. First, he wasn't dead. Second, he might be in even bigger trouble than he thought. Kaelen had expected a dungeon, or at least some variation of an alien-holding cell. Cold walls, flickering lights, maybe a chair designed for interrogation by someone who didn't believe in lumbar support. What he got instead was a garden. Floating platforms suspended in midair like lily pads, drifting in a slow spiral around a central spire that pulsed with living light. His boots clanged against a walkway of translucent crystal as two Veyrians flanked him, not holding weapons, just radiating the kind of calm that suggested they could crush his skull with a thought if they felt like it. The air smelled like ozone and something sweet, like nectar. Birds, or things pretending to be birds, spiraled lazily through the air, wings flickering like holograms. Kaelen muttered under his breath, "Worst kidnapping ever. At least give me a cell with a complimentary fruit basket." What is a fruit basket? The voice slid into his thoughts like warm water. He jolted. Would you stop doing that? Lady Nira walked beside him, her gown trailing behind her in a cascade of light. You project loudly. Hard to ignore. Well, excuse me for not being a Zen monk after crash landing on a planet with telepathic aristocrats. Her ears tilted back slightly, a gesture he was starting to think meant amusement. Zen monk? Forget it. Cultural reference. Look, could we maybe not share every passing thought? Some of them aren't diplomatic. Her tone shimmered with humor. You mean the one about whether my hair is naturally silver or alloyed with metal? Kaelen groaned. I was curious. And the one about wondering if my ears are sensitive? That was purely academic. Her laughter rippled across his mind like sunlight through water. He tried to focus on literally anything else, like the architecture, which didn't help because the buildings were absurdly gorgeous. Towers spiraling like frozen whirlpools, bridges that glowed when stepped on, levitating platforms rotating in a slow celestial dance. Veyrians didn't just build cities, they choreographed them. They crossed into a chamber, so vast it made his chest ache just looking at it. No ceiling, just an open dome of aurora-lit sky, with streams of light flowing upward like reversed waterfalls. A long oval table floated in the center, ringed by figures who radiated an unsettling serenity. The high house. Kaelen's instincts screamed diplomacy mode, which unfortunately was the same as panic mode, except with more sweating. Do not speak unless addressed, Nira murmured in his mind. Do not imagine violence. Do not lie. They will know. Great. Anything else? Should I juggle? Tap dance. What is tap dance? Never mind. The council's thoughts pressed against his skull like a tide, curious, probing, tasting his fear, and rolling it on their tongues like wine. Kaelen clamped down hard, mentally chanting multiplication tables. 7 times 8 is 56, 9 times 9 is... Why are you reciting numbers? Nira's voice was pure amusement. Privacy invasion prevention. Primitive. Ineffective. Charming. One of the council members, a male with eyes like molten metal, leaned forward. His thoughts were sharp, slicing through the murmur. Human. State your purpose. Kaelen swallowed and said aloud. Diplomacy. And, survival. In that order. Ripples of mental sound moved through the chamber. Not laughter exactly, but something close. The molten-eyed Veyrian pressed again. You crashed in restricted skies. I didn't see a no-fly sign, Kaelen said before his survival instincts could gag him. Then, hurriedly. Accident. Navigation glitch. Totally unintentional. He speaks with jest. That thought came from a stern-looking female whose ears glittered with gems. Strange for a species bred from conflict. Strange or dangerous. Another voice cut in, coiling with suspicion. He hides his weapons well. Kaelen blanched. I don't have weapons. He thought it so hard it nearly broke his skull. Except sarcasm, Nira murmured dryly. He risked a glance at her. She was watching him, and he caught it again. That spark, that dangerous hint of laughter, the one that made him forget, for a second, that he was one bad joke away from being telepathically lobotomized. The questioning went on for what felt like hours, though time was strange here. Light shifted like liquid, shadows curling in ways that made no sense. They asked about humanity, about Earth, about why he had come. He answered as best he could, biting back every joke except the ones that slipped through like cracks in armor. When it was done, the council withdrew, minds folding away like silk fans. Nira motioned for him to follow. So, Kaelen said once they were alone in a spiraling corridor of glass and light. How did I do? On a scale from stellar diplomat to imminent execution? Closer to the latter, she replied smoothly. Then, after a pause, but you amused them. That is rare. Great. I'll add court jester to my resume. What is a resume? Never mind. Different planet, different jokes. He glanced at her. You didn't tell them about the thoughts, did you? Which ones? That you find me aesthetically pleasing? That you wondered if I glow in the dark? He groaned. Please tell me you're joking. Her smile was wicked and entirely telepathic. Perhaps. And for the first time since he'd crashed, Kaelen laughed, loud, helpless, echoing down the corridor like a man who'd just realized that being doomed might actually be fun. Kaelen had never seen a library without books. Then again, he'd never seen a library where thoughts hung in the air like luminous ribbons, whispering to anyone who dared to reach for them. Nira led him down a causeway of floating steps, each one glowing when her feet touched it. They spiraled into a cavernous hall, where the air shimmered like heat haze. He stopped on the last step, staring. Memories, actual living memories, wove through the space like strands of starlight. Threads of color looped and curled, pulsing faintly with voices that weren't voices, laughter that wasn't sound. Kaelen's jaw worked. Okay, this is the part where I say something profound, but my brain just shorted out. You wish to understand our past, Nira said, her mind brushing his with effortless calm. Here it lives. You keep history as loose thoughts. We keep history as it was, she corrected. Unfiltered. Alive. If you seek answers, take them. Right, he said, eyeing the ribbons like they might bite. Just casually stick my head into an alien mind cloud. Nothing to worry about. Nira tilted her head, amused. You are afraid of stories? I'm afraid of accidentally erasing myself and waking up thinking I'm a teapot. Her laughter rippled through him, and before he could come up with a comeback, a thread of light drifted close, curling like smoke. It touched his temple, and the world snapped sideways. He was standing on a battlefield. Not Earth, not Veyris, something in between, a shattered moon hanging like a broken coin in the sky. Ships burned in orbit, raining fire down on plains strewn with bodies. Humans and Veyrians, side by side and against each other. He heard screaming, felt heat on his skin. A voice tore through the din, a thought so sharp it seared his mind. Erase them before they erase us. Kaelen staggered, tearing free from the memory with a gasp. His knees hit the glass floor. Nira knelt beside him, her face unreadable. You saw. He swallowed hard. We fought before. Not just fought. We slaughtered each other. It was long ago. Long ago for you, he snapped, then winced at his tone. Humans don't know this. It's not in our records. We thought this was first contact. Perhaps your leaders buried it, or forgot. His laugh was bitter. Guess what? History repeats when no one remembers the first draft. He felt her mind brushes, gentle but firm, steadying him like a hand on his shoulder. You are not your ancestors. Tell that to your council. She didn't answer. Instead, her thoughts coiled tight, like something she didn't want him to touch. Orders. Loyalty. Secrets. He felt the edges of it before she sealed the door in her mind. He stared at her, suddenly cold. They sent you to read me, didn't they? Not just chit-chat and cultural exchange. They want fleet routes. Codes. Her silence was answer enough. Kaelen laughed again, sharp and hollow. Great. I'm a walking intelligence leak. You are more than that, she said quietly. Yeah. What am I then? Her eyes held his, and for a second, her thoughts pressed against his in a way that wasn't command or inquiry, but something softer. Something that tasted like warmth. Unexpected. Before he could process that, the floor trembled. A ripple of force rolled through the hall, making the memory threads lash wildly, like startled serpents. Kaelen grabbed the nearest step to keep his balance. What was that? Nira's head snapped toward the entrance. Her mind flared hot with alarm. We are not alone. Shapes spilled into the hall, dark-clad Veyrians, their thoughts jagged, humming with one word over and over, purity. 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 Kaelen's stomach dropped. I'm guessing they're not here for story hour. Stay behind me. Yeah, sure. Let me just hide behind the telepathic glow stick in the murder cathedral. Perfect plan. Her glare was sharp enough to silence him, mostly. The attackers moved without sound, mind screaming with purpose. Nira flung a thought like a blade, and the first one froze mid-stride, collapsing bonelessly to the floor. Kaelen stared wide-eyed. Did you just brain punch him? Let's talk. Move. She seized his wrist and yanked him toward an archway. He stumbled after her, heart hammering like a faulty engine. Behind them, the hall erupted in mental static, flashes of intent, bursts of pain, thoughts slamming like doors. Kaelen felt some of it, enough to make his stomach turn. They plunged into a corridor that seemed to tilt sideways, gravity flickering like a bad signal. Kaelen's boots skidded on the glowing steps. Your palace needs fewer death hallways. Our palace was not built for running. Yeah, no kidding. Another ripple of force hit, nearly pitching him into open air. Nira caught him with one hand, her grip iron-strong. Her other mind flared outward like a shield, deflecting something sharp and mental that sizzled past Kaelen's skull like an electric scream. Was that? Yes. Keep moving. He didn't argue. Not when assassins were trying to turn his brain into soup. They burst into a chamber strung with threads of light, like a spiderweb of memories. Nira spun, thoughts slicing through the air like glass. 3 attackers dropped, clutching their skulls. Kaelen pressed against a pillar, panting. Okay. New life goal. Never piss you off. Wise choice. He swallowed hard, forcing humor through the fear. Does this mean the library's closed for the day? She didn't laugh. Her thoughts curled tight again, not like before, when she'd hidden secrets, but like a blade sheathed for the next strike. And Kaelen, trembling and breathless, realized something terrifying. This wasn't about him crashing. This wasn't random. Someone wanted a war, and he was the spark they needed to light it. Kaelen had never sprinted through a city where gravity worked like a coin flip. One moment his boots slammed solid on crystal streets. The next he was floating, arms windmilling, praying he wouldn't collide with something sharp or alive or both. This is insane, he yelled, mostly at himself, partly at Nira, who was gliding ahead like physics existed solely to please her. Keep up. Her thought cracked like a whip. Yeah, sure, I'll just whoa. His body spun sideways as a gravity well hiccuped beneath him, sending him drifting toward a balcony strung with glass vines. He crashed into it with all the grace of a dropped cargo crate. 10 out of 10 landing, he wheezed. Nira appeared in front of him, without so much as a hair out of place. You are loud even when silent. Great, add unsettled human to my resume. He shoved himself upright. Please tell me you've got an actual escape plan, and not just an Olympic telepath marathon. This way. She seized his wrist again and hauled him down a narrow archway pulsing faintly with light. Behind them, shouts, mental, not vocal, echoed like thunder in his skull. He didn't need translation to know they weren't fan club cheers. Any chance, he panted. These guys just want to talk about cultural exchange? Maybe over tea. Their idea of tea involves your brain in a bowl. Right, that's specific. Another tremor hit, shaking the city like a living thing. Overhead, one of the levitating platforms shuddered and dipped, spilling a cascade of luminous vines into the void. Kaelin's stomach lurched as he glimpsed the drop, miles of nothing until the lower spires glittering like shards far below. "Please tell me we're not jumping," he said. Nira didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Oh, come on." She launched herself off the edge. For 1 second, Kaelen stared after her, brain screaming bad life choices. Then he jumped. Freefall hit like a punch. Air tore at his suit. The city spun, a kaleidoscope of glass and light and too much sky. He flailed, praying gravity would remember its job. It didn't. Then something yanked him sideways, hard. His boots hit solid ground, knees buckling. He looked up to see Nira lowering her arm, eyes faintly glowing. "You did that," he gasped. "You mind grabbed me mid-fall. You would be dead without me." "Yeah, well, thanks for saving my life again, but a little warning next time before the death plummet." "You complain too much. I call it feedback." They plunged into another corridor, this one humming with a low-frequency thrum that made his teeth ache. Kaelen glanced up and froze. The ceiling wasn't a ceiling. It was a river of light, flowing upside down, studded with orbs that pulsed like beating hearts. "What is this place?" "Transit spine. We can reach the outer rings from here. Outer rings sound safe. Or at least farther from the people trying to turn my brain into soup." A surge of static slammed into him, a thought, sharp and jagged, slicing through the air like a blade. He staggered, clutching his skull. "They found us." Nira's mind flared, intercepting the strike with a mental force that cracked like ice. Kaelen felt the backlash through her. Heat pain, a shiver down his spine that wasn't his. "You okay?" he choked. "Move." Her tone was iron. He didn't argue. They sprinted along the spine, boots pounding on a surface that shifted like liquid underfoot. Behind them, shadows lengthened 3, 4, 5 figures, thoughts howling with fanatic fire. Kaelen's lungs burned. His brain burned worse. Every stray thought a beacon. Every flicker of fear amplified like a signal flare. "Don't think, don't think, don't think," he chanted, which of course made him think harder. About death. About falling. About Nira's hand still gripping his wrist like an anchor. "Focus," she snapped, slamming a barricade of thought behind them. It cracked under the attacker's assault, shards of psychic pressure raining like glass. Kaelen risked a glance back, and instantly regretted it. The assassins weren't just running. They were gliding, skating on currents of gravity, their bodies shimmering as they bled into light and reformed. "Okay," he panted. "So they've got Jedi tricks. That's comforting." "What is Jedi?" "Pop culture reference. Earth thing. Not important." The spine ended in a circular chamber ringed with translucent discs. Nira dragged him toward one and slammed her palm against it. Light flared, and the disc shot upward, or downward, or maybe sideways. Kaelen had no idea anymore. His stomach floated somewhere near his throat as the world warped into a blur of colors. When it stopped, they were standing in a cavern that hummed with energy. Massive spires jutted from the floor like the bones of some ancient beast, each one crowned with a glowing node that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Ships, sleek silver, curved like blades, hung suspended in webs of force. Kaelen's breath caught. "Spaceport." "Outer launch ring," Nira confirmed. "You're putting me on a ship." "We are leaving. Together." He blinked. "Together." Her thoughts brushed his like a whisper. "You think I would let you navigate alone? You would be dead before orbit." "Wow. Thanks for the vote of confidence." Truth is not insult. He opened his mouth for a snarky reply, and froze as a wave of killing intent slammed into them like a storm. The assassins stepped through a shimmering archway, minds blazing, weapons blooming from their sleeves like shards of night. Kaelen swore. No witty banter this time. Just run. But Nira didn't run. She stepped forward, her thoughts unfurling like wings, vast and blinding, her voice slicing through his skull. "Stay behind me." Kaelen obeyed, not because he wanted to, but because for the first time, he understood something terrifying and awe-inspiring in equal measure. Nira wasn't just beautiful. She was lethal, and she was about to kill for him. Kaelen had never been this close to dying and laughing at the same time. The assassins were everywhere, darting like shadows between the spires, mind shrieking in a frequency that made his teeth feel like they were vibrating out of his skull. Nira moved like a storm given flesh. Her thoughts weren't just blades anymore. They were a hurricane, tearing through the mental net the attackers wove. Sparks of psychic energy flared, cracking the air like thunder. Kaelen ducked behind a column, clutching his head as if that would stop the pressure threatening to split it open. "Stay with me." Her voice slammed into him, urgent but steady. "I'm trying," he gasped, "but my brain is currently hosting a telepathic fireworks show." "Then shield it." "From what? The entire murder choir?" "Sure, let me just flip the brain shield switch I don't have." Something snapped in his head, her thought plunging deep, not like a weapon, but like a hand closing over his. "With me." For a second, the noise vanished. The chaos faded. There was only her mind and his, braided together like two threads under impossible tension. He felt her strength, her focus, her sheer refusal to let him fall, and beneath it, something softer, something that made his chest ache. "Good," she whispered. "Now move." They moved as one. He didn't know how, but he was inside her rhythm, his steps matching hers, ducking when she ducked, leaping when she leaped. Her mind wrapped around his like armor, deflecting every psychic strike aimed at him. One of the assassins lunged from the left, blade flashing with condensed energy. Kaelen's instinct screamed, and before he could think, his body reacted. His fist slammed forward, not into flesh but into thought, riding the tether between him and Nira like a current. The assassin froze mid-stride, clutching his skull, and dropped. Kaelen stared at his hands. "Did I just—" "Yes." Later, they reached the launch ring. A sleek silver craft pulsed on the docking cradle, held aloft by webs of gravitic force. Nira hurled a thought at the controls, and the cradle released with a resonant hum. "Please tell me you can fly this thing," Kaelen said, scrambling up the ramp. "Better than you." "Not hard. My last landing was basically interpretive crashing." The hatch sealed. The ship shuddered as Nira slid into the pilot's cradle, a chair that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought spines were optional. She fused her hands to the interface, and the whole vessel came alive in a blaze of light. Kaelen strapped in, heart pounding as the bay doors peeled open to reveal a sky split by auroras and burning stars. "So what's the plan?" "Just wing it into orbit and hope your people don't shoot us down." "Not hope." Her thoughts flared like sunlight. "Make them listen." The ship roared forward, flinging Kaelen back in his seat. The spires blurred into streaks of crystal and fire. Behind them, the assassins poured through the launch ring, but too late. The vessel punched upward, tearing through clouds that glowed like molten glass. Kaelen let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Okay. Crisis over. Easy part now, convincing a telepathic government not to start a war because of me." "Not because of you," Nira corrected. "Because they fear what they do not control." "Yeah, well, fear seems to be the galaxy's favorite hobby." He glanced at her. "You're risking everything for this." "For me." "Why?" Her mind brushed his like a warm tide. "Because when I read you, I found no malice. Only wonder. Only laughter. We have forgotten laughter." Kaelen swallowed hard. "Guess I'm good for something after all." More than something. The ship broke the upper atmosphere, stars spilling across the void like shattered diamonds. Ahead, a Veyrian dreadnought hung in orbit, its hull gleaming like a blade. Kaelen's stomach dropped. "They're going to blow us out of the sky." "Not if they know the truth." "And what truth is that?" "That you've gone rogue with a guy who can't stop thinking embarrassing things about your ears." That war ends now. The dreadnought's guns flared to life, brilliant spears of light charging for annihilation. Kaelen's heart stopped. Then Nira's thoughts unfurled like wings across the void. He felt her voice amplify, braided with his. Their minds fused into a single, burning signal enough. The word wasn't sound. It was a pulse, a quake, a thought that hit every Veyrian mind like a tidal wave. Through her, Kaelen felt them. Hundreds of presences recoiling, hesitating. And then silence. The guns dimmed. The channel opened. The high house spoke, cold and sharp. "You defy us, Nira. I protect what matters." Her voice was a blade of ice and fire. "Kill him, and you kill me." Kill me. And you kill what makes us more than memory. Kaelen winced. Wow. No pressure. There was a long pause. Then the guns folded away. The dreadnought shifted, turning like a great beast withdrawing its claws. Kaelen sagged in his seat, shaking with relief. So that's it. We're not dead. Not yet. Comforting. When they landed hours later, under escort but alive, the council was waiting. Judgment was swift. Nira stripped of her title. Kaelen ordered to leave Veyris forever. No appeal. No exceptions. He stood on the crystal bridge, where it had all started, the shuttle waiting behind him. Nira faced him, her gown dimmer now, but her eyes brighter than he'd ever seen. So this is goodbye, he said softly. For now. You know. He tried to joke, because if he didn't, he'd break. Long-distance telepathy is going to wreck my data plan. She laughed, not in his head but aloud, and it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. Then her thoughts brushed as one last time, tender as starlight. Distance means nothing when minds can touch. The shuttle's hatch closed. Veyris fell away, a jewel against the black. Kaelen stared at it until it vanished, his chest hollow and full all at once. He didn't know what came next, but he knew this. He wasn't the same man who crashed here. And maybe, just maybe, that smile in his mind meant neither was she. The end.